So, let us start with mathematical functions and characters and string. Mathematical functions are anything that deals with math or trigonometry, like uh, arctan, cosine, tan, anything which is mathematical. Pi is mathematical, square root, power is mathematical. So, any of these functionality is mathematical. Characters and strings. Strings are any text is basically a string. So, you have text, correct? You will be using a lot of text when you are actually programming. Like, let's take an example. This text at the bottom of the slide is a string which has essentially the @c 2015, which is a number which is all part of a string. You do system dot out dot print ln, whatever goes inside there is a string. So, example, so assuming I needed to produce something like this, which basically is text, number, text, number. Essentially, how that will work is text plus number plus this symbol, which is this guy, plus number plus this guy. So this is your text. This will be Charlotte plus number plus this thing. This will actually give you the text that you need, which will look like this. So objectives, we'll talk about math, characters, character, string length, function, character at I. We'll talk about compared to, we'll talk about index of, few other things in there. So mathematical function, there's a class called math, which essentially is what is used to perform any mathematical functions. That said, there are two constants in the class, which is pi, as we know, and e, which we know. There are many methods which are trigonometric methods, exponential, rounding, max, minimum, average, and random methods. Random is a method that is used a lot. Just in case if you have no data, sometimes you have to generate random data in order to proceed with your calculations. Now, looking at that, sine function is used, math sine, return 0. This value is in radians. Essentially, 2 pi radians is equal to 360 degrees. Pi is equal to 180. Pi by 2 is equal to 90. Pi by 4 is equal to 45. So, like pi by 6 will be 30 degrees, 60 degrees. So, there you go. Pi by 6 is 60 degrees, it turns with 0.5. Okay. Then math pi essentially by 2 is 180 degrees. Then math pi by 6 is math pi by 6 is 60 degrees. No, 30 degrees. 30 degrees. Pi by 6 is not 60, it's 30. Similarly, you can do pi by 2. So, anything that you put in here is a double, which is basically in terms of pi. So, if I wanted arctan of 30 or 90 degrees, I would have put pi by 2, which will be math dot pi divided by 2. That'll be how it. So, you can convert degrees to radians if you want. You can put the degree and do 2 radians. This function allows you to convert degrees to radians. Your exponential similarly works the same way. Exponential works the same way. Math exponential works the same way. Exponential then math log works with putting the log number inside. Power, this is 2 to the power of 3, which is 2 to the power of 3, which is equal to 8. Similarly, other functions are done the same way. Square root is sqrt. Basically, square root is root of 4, which is equal to 2. And square root of 10.5 will be root of 10.5, which is equal to 3.24. Power, square root, and everything is a double. All of these taken input as a double and output as a double. So you have double ceiling, Ceiling is the nearest rounding up to integer. So if you have 3.5, it will round it up to 4. If you have 3.9, it will round it up to 4. If you have 3.1, it will round it up to 4. Floor is the lower value essentially. So these are examples of something. If you want to cut cloth into certain sizes, so you have to cut cloth into certain sizes, like say 1 meter each, and you have 4.2 meters, that means 4 pieces. So then is when floor is used, because floor basically gives you the lower integer, which is 4 pieces. So you have a cloth which is a certain length, you can only cut 4 pieces, and whatever is left is less than 1 meter, so you can't use it. So you can use floor to do such a calculation. R int is rounded to the nearest integer. If x is equally close, it's returned. Even 1 is returned as, so round also is also an integer. You can round. So math plus 4 essentially takes it. So it takes it lower, and then anything over 0.5 is rounds it to the next number. Similarly, all these rounding methods are here giving you. So this is essentially a float fed in. 2.6 returns as 3. Rounding 2.6 goes to the next highest, which is 3. Rounding 2 returns as 2. Rounding minus 2 returns as minus 2. 2.6 returns as minus 3 because that's the nearest higher number. Similarly, minimum, maximum, and absolute. Minimum value is the minimum of two values. So you have value A and B, and so the minimum value will return as the minimum value of the two numbers. Max will return as maximum value. Absolute will return the value without a sign. So this is absolute, so it returns the value without a sign. So minus 2.1 returns with 2.1. Random value is in the range of 0 to 1 essentially, and it returns a value between 0 to 1. Sometimes there is something as seed that you will need to set, because if you are using random for calculations, you have to make sure that the value doesn't change like for testing purposes, you may want the same value all the time or same random value all the time for predictable results. So if you want to generate a random value between 0 and 10, so you multiply the math random as it's between 0 and 1 into 10, so that will give you values from 0 to 10. 0 to 9 returns with value 0 to 9 because it's less than 10, because you are actually taking the int value of that, so that rounds it down. So assuming you have 9.99, and if you take an int of that, it will be 9. Similarly, you have to calculate 50. So 50, that means it'll be values over 50. This is between 0 and 49. That means 50 plus 0 and 49 is 50 to 99. In general, A plus math gives you values between a certain number. Good question for exam. So computing a triangle essentially. So you can do arc cosine, and this is the calculation that you can have inside, and that will give you ABC here. Similarly, there is data types are two types. There's an ASCII and there's a Unicode. ASCII generally is limited to 128 characters. So like 4, and this is in higher space. So if you want to represent Japanese, Chinese, Korean, any of the languages, you can actually use Unicode to show them. It goes into higher space, so you can display more characters. Similarly, alpha, beta, gamma, the 3 Greek characters, can be represented like this essentially. So that's this thing. So Unicode 16-bit scheme encoding. So you have Unicode 16. So here you go. Specifies U. Unicode takes 2 bytes preceded by U, expressed as 4 hexadecimal numbers. So Unicode can represent this many characters. So 0 to 9, you have 48 to 57, A to Z, 65 to 90, 97 to 122. So 0 to 9, it represents ASCII, and 0 to 127, there you go. and it can be represented in Unicode value like this. Similarly, there are a few other special characters which are backspace if you want to use, tab if you want to use, line feed if you want to use, that means changes line. Like you are writing like this and you do +/n, it will go on to the next line. So if you have a long text which has multiple lines, you can add /n, which basically, and then continue the text +/n, continue the text, and it will just make that text into multiple lines. Form feed is another, this thing, carriage return also gets the thing back to the start. Backslash is if you want to represent this guy. Double quotes is if you want to put text quotes in text. So if you have text quotes in text, assuming you want to put quotes here, but if you put it like this, it will complete the string here. So you have to do slash. So it ignores this and keeps it as text. So that's your ASCII character set with all characters, 0 to 9 and 1 to 12. So it gives you all possible values that you can see. And ASCII is a subset of the Unicode essentially, from this value to this value in Unicode. So the character set continued for Unicode. So I is equal to A. So this represents an ASCII, so value of 97 essentially, which is A, and converts this value into ASCII, which is, makes it numeric as an integer. Similarly, you can actually do characters between A and Z. So it will tell you it's between A and Z, and this will tell you between A and Z smaller case and 0 and 9 smaller case. Few things though, characters. So is digit returns with character returns with a specified digit. Is letter returns with a character as a letter. One represent uppercase, lowercase. Is lowercase checks if the character is lowercase. Is uppercase checks if the character is uppercase. Uppercase is capital A. Lowercase is small a. To lowercase, if you have mixed case, it will convert everything to lowercase. So if you have A, it remains A, but if you have capital A, it will make it small a. And if you have, say, capital A as uppercase, it will make it small a. String type. A character type only represents one character. To represent a string of characters, we use something called string. So string has multiple characters. So if you have multiple characters, this is basically sum of multiple characters. For example, this has so many characters. See, all these are characters. The space is also a character. The two spaces between the two space is sometimes denoted by b/, because if you do space, you don't know how many spaces. Assuming I wanted to put 5 spaces, so I would do b hash, b hash, b hash, b hash, b hash to show 5 spaces in while writing. Length gives you the length of a string. Character at gives you a character at a particular index. Concat joins the strings, returns a new string which is concatenated to the string with S1, any string. To uppercase converts to uppercase. Lower trim takes the spaces out. So if you have text here and space here, trim will remove this space and this space. So assuming you had hello and a space here, b dash, so it will remove this guy. This will go away and it will just return hello. Strings objects in Java, they have methods, like quite a few, and we will look at them. So welcome to Java. So this is basically the length of message basically comes back to tell me. So whatever you want to put, in this case this text goes in there, is, and this tells you the size of the string, the size of the string, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 characters. So let's see what it shows. So 14, so it starts with 0, ends with 14, which is basically 15 characters. So message length, it returns as 15. character at 0 is the first character. So character at 14 is the last character. Say character at 7 will be space. Okay, so it will come back as this. Yeah, the first character of the message is message.character, which will give you W. Similarly, you can convert text to lowercase, text to uppercase. You can trim text, so this space will go away. Uppercase will show you this. Lowercase will show you this. Concatenation is the exercise of joining strings. So it concatenates. So welcome to Java is connected with welcome to Java, and then chapter 2 becomes chapter 2 because the string gets concatenated. So these are string operations that allow you to concatenate strings. Now if you want to take string as an input through the you use the new scanner method and ask for input next. So this takes in next. Now every time you call next, it reads more strings that you input. So if you enter hello, how are you with spaces, so first it will do hello, how are you will be your strings S1, S2, S3, S4. So it just takes the input, next input. You can enter character, so you can do input get line, get the string, and you can get character as character at 0, the first character. Same method to enter characters. So equal, basically to compare two strings, you can do an equal, but it's better advisable to something like that. You can do equal ignoring case. So assuming you are checking for passwords or login, this may come in handy. Compare to string, it tells you if the string integer is greater than 0, equal to 0, less than 0. Equal to means the two strings are same. Less than, right. Compare to ignore case gives you compare two strings where it actually ignores if there are capital and small letters, converts everything to small and compares with. Start with prefix. If there is a ext prefix, you can say start with prefix. If there are multiple strings with ext at the start, it will pick it up essentially. It returns true if the string starts with a specific prefix. Sometimes you're generating a number of files. Like if you're making a piece of video, you have to generate very files with frame numbers. So you'll say frame 001, frame 002, and you're not worried about these numbers. You want them, all the files with frames, to be picked up. At that point, you can use start with frame and it'll pick up any file which says frame at the beginning. Well, anything with frame in the beginning will return as true. Ends with, essentially you have a suffix at the end. So assuming you want text files are txt, so you want to return with all text files, so you can say suffix at the end is .txt. So any file name with txt will be picked, or any string with the name txt. In this case, any string with name with like this will be picked with because of the frame. It will return true. Obtaining substring. Substring basically is that part of the string needs to come back, so this will actually give you substring. So this is where it starts and this is where it ends. So it gives you substring between 0 and 11. And message substring starts from 11 and continues till the end of the string. So it starts from here, continues till end of the string, so it will return Java. And this will return welcome to and space. So there you go. So index of character will give you the character index. Index of character from index, it will return from index. Index of s will give you index of s from index, last index, first index. These are all functions. If you have a string and you do string dot, all these functions will show up as a drop down. So there you go. So index of, so if you do 0k, it starts from 0, goes up till k, and then from first name 0 to k. So what you're trying to do first is trying to find out what the index of space is. So the index of space is essentially this guy, which is basically 3, so this will return as 3. And if you do 0 to 3, then it will pick 0 to k, essentially it will pick this guy, and then you do k plus 1, which is this guy, and then get back to the end of the string, and it will come back as Jones. So if you want to convert to string to an integer, this is the function to use to come to string to integer. If you want string to double, you can use this function to get string to double. That means if you have a value of 0.0007 and you want to convert it to string, you can use this function pass 0.00, or you want to say, yeah, similar program can give you dates, can give you birth dates, and run see guess somebody's birth date. So you can actually convert binary in a binary game. You can convert a hexadecimal to a decimal value. So that's another one. So out printf is important because it will allow you to format anything in terms of double, strings, approximation, to control the output the way it is. So these are certain things. So some b converts to a value, character returns a character, d decimal, and it forces. So assuming you do a %d and you pass count, it will convert the count into a decimal integer. Amount into a decimal. Amount, if it's a f, it converts into a floating point number. So how that works is, you use printf, you have text, you signify what you want. First value is the first value that you signify, second value is the second value you signify, third, fourth, fifth, you keep on going. So count of 5, amount of this much, this is what it displays. Yeah, that's the end.